Welcome our Charter Review Committee. At this time, we're going to go ahead, and it is 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Member Billings.
Here.
Member Fuselier.
Here.
Member Hathaway.
Here.
Member Eisen.
Here.
Member Palmer.
Here.
Member Poole.
Here.
Member Rashida.
Here.
Member Riker.
Here.
Member Rokier.
Here.
Member Smith.
Here.
And Member Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have everybody present tonight. Nobody's missing. Great. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from April 15th.
Move to approve. Second.
Member Billings.
Yes.
Member Fuselier.
Yes.
Member Hathaway.
Yes.
Member Eisen.
Yes.
Member Palmer.
Yes.
Member Poole.
Yes.
Member Rashida.
Yes.
Member Riker.
Yes.
Member Rokier.
Yes.
Member Smith.
Yes.
Member Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comments. We do have public comment?
Speak in your microphone, please.
Oh, do we have any public comments this evening?
Yes, sir, Merrill, 708 South Cooper Street. I'd like to ask a question. Is anybody at a dais consulting for the city government right now on this dais here? And if they are, is that a conflict of interest? If you're advising the city on a consulting job for the government, you're sitting on this dais here. I just asked that question. Now, 3 members on this dais here came with a bias, in my opinion, before they sat on this dais here. At the city commissioners meeting, 3 of you stood here and said that it was unfair for the mayor to only have 2 years. He should have 4 years. It's unfair for the mayor to only get 50 plus 1 at the primaries. It should be automatically into the forward there. That was voted on the first thing in the first meeting here. All right, only Mr. Roker was the one that said, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? Made a comment on that. All right, so this was, to me, the first meeting was kind of like, my point of view, it was a train. All you guys got on board, and they cut the cord, and you're going down a 10-degree grade going down. Started going right away. The first 15 minutes of the meeting, the first vote you took was on the mayor's 4 years. It seemed like it was pre-scheduled, you might say, or pre-planned. Just a view, not saying it was. Then now, the second meeting, Mr. Roker, I watched the video, so I wasn't here, and you made up a lot of good points in regards to getting a whiteboard. Now, to me, that should have been the first thing done in the first meeting. Coming in and had a plan how the meeting was going to go, how the future was going to go, pros and cons. It took Mr. Roker to come up and make that point here. And most of you said, yeah, that's a good idea. But the first meeting was all like, let's do this now. It was happening fast, and it did happen fast. You guys voted on that 9-1. They're having the 4 years on there, already passed. So now, the second meeting, you have all the whiteboards come in, and all these things come in. Now you want to remove the city clerk from the commissioners, the charter officer. It appears to me that by removing the city clerk from the city commission gives the city manager more power, and you don't have a separation of church and state. City clerk has her job, their job, and the city manager has their job. Okay, both of them work for the commissioners. You should not remove the city clerk from the charter and make him or her under the city manager. Thank you.
Not sure it's good to follow that, but Cindy Sneezak, 512 Yukon. I know about half of you on the committee, and the committee is really important, and I'm grateful that you're giving your time to this. I just said hello to Susan tonight, so it's the first time I've met her in person. You know, I watched the first meeting in totality, and I watched the first hour of the second meeting, and then I got caught up in some other things, but I saw enough in both meetings to be dismayed or caution that there needs to be a very clearly written process that the facilitator is going to use to provide services to you. You left the first meeting with nothing offered by the facilitator so that you could discuss it, give pros and cons, and then come to consensus. There was nothing about how you were going to make decisions. Yet, in the first 8 minutes of the meeting, you did make a decision on probably one of the more contentious items that you're going to discuss, which is the term of the mayor. I heard, but didn't see it yet, that in the second meeting, you elected not to discuss as too controversial the subject of term limits. So I'm trying to struggle with those two things, and you're shaking your head, I can see some of you, but this board was to run on the basis of consensus. And how do I know that? I know that from the proposal by the facilitator's company, which I took the time to share with at least two of you, four of you, and I can share it with all of you if you like. It very clearly says that enough room will be provided for, I don't want to make a mistake, to conduct a reasonable thought process allowing for in-depth, deliberations and consensus building. Yet, we left the meeting, both meetings, without a clear view of how decisions were being made. And in fact, as a facilitator myself for decades, voting is not how you determine consensus. So I have a process problem here. And so basically, in my mind, the first meeting, unfortunate that it went beyond its bounds. It went beyond decision-making, especially with two members absent whom you knew were going to be absent. So I am concerned about that. I am concerned about one comment I heard in the last meeting, that it's so obvious about some of the changes that need to be made here, that there was harm done by certain things not being addressed in the 2020 advisory review. So I have concerns about that, and I wonder if what you're doing now isn't very well tainted by what happened just in the first meeting. So please reflect on that. Thank you.
Good evening, Randy Herman, 108 Esther Street. I'd like to speak to the special election consideration and the issue of will voter turnout be enough or sufficient? And I think it's a very important issue. If you approve the 4-year term, I would think it might be worth considering that the election for the mayor should be in the presidential year when we do have the best turnout. I know there's an energy probably to get this done so that this can occur in the 2026 election, but that would then put the mayor's election always in the off year when we know we get the lowest voter turnout. And I know that's been discussed as important. So I thought that might be something that you could consider debating tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. Mark, did you have something you wanted to bring up?
Yes, I'd like to have a point of order. Based on my reflection of the first couple of meetings and aligned with what has been stated by some of the citizens tonight, I think the facilitator's job is to keep the dialogue going, but outlining a process, understanding how we're making decisions, and ensure that we're achieving what we're asked to do. For discussion, I'd like to make a motion that we identify a member of this committee as the chairperson, and I make a motion to nominate Mr. Hathaway.
Oh, second.
What? Perhaps it might be beneficial to, if we're going to go that route, to pick somebody who's managed meetings on this dais. I'm looking at you, Madam Vice Mayor. I appreciate that, but I don't have any specific experience in that realm.
So what would the role of the chairperson be?
I think we could have discussion, but I feel like, consistent with what we heard tonight, has been we've had some some productive dialogue, but a process of how we get to a decision point, when we call the question, when we have the vote after adequate dialogue. And my experience has been not in an elected capacity, but other board capacity. There's always a chairperson that works in tandem with the facilitator, but gets to the point where you call the question, have the vote, move on to the next item. So I was impressed by some comments you made, sir, and I don't know you outside of here, when we were asked about where we were in the status of some legislation, and you were able to find it and quote it. So forgive me if I nominated you unexpectedly for that, but you impressed me. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
I would recommend Mrs. Riker to be the chair.
Okay, so procedurally wise, we have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. So we either need to vote on that motion, and then if it fails, nominate another person. But technically, we do have a motion on the floor and it has been seconded. You can have discussion regarding that as to whether you would like Mr. Hathaway to be the chairperson. And then procedurally wise, just so that you're aware, if he is elected, he would nominate a vice chair, and then you would go from there based on the resolution I have in front of me.
I have a question. If I heard Mr. Hathaway correctly, it sounded like he doesn't want the job, that he refused. So the motion to me would be mute because he's saying he's not accepting the job. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would much prefer that it go to former Vice Mayor, former Commissioner Riker.
Okay, so on that note,
Well, if we do that, though, shouldn't we first decide, do we want a chairperson? Just because somebody's mentioned a chairperson doesn't mean that we've decided that we want one or need one.
unfortunately, you had a motion made and it was seconded. So procedurally, we need to vote on that motion. You all are aware of Mr. Hathaway's feelings. The vote can be voted so that it fails. At this point in time, just know where that stands. So if we call the roll, then from there we can proceed with another motion.
I'm used to losing elections. It won't hurt my feelings.
If we're in discussion, may I withdraw the motion and make a motion to nominate a chair?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll withdraw my initial motion, make a motion that from this committee, we nominate someone to be chairperson.
I'll second.
Okay. Let's vote on that motion.
Second for discussion, unless did you second it?
I second.
Okay, get a discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure we need a chair. Susan's been leading the meeting. She's been hired to lead our meetings and lead our conversation. I think all she really needs to do is see when it's time to call the vote, or if someone says, I think we need to vote on this, then Susan can say, we need to vote on this. I'm not quite sure picking one of us to lead, because we're all leaders. I mean, look at us, we're all leaders. And I've listened to the meeting last time that I missed, and there's a lot of good conversation and a lot of good leadership here. So I think to just pick one, when that is really what Susan's charged to do. So that's how I feel about it.
I would agree with you, Judy. I think that even if maybe it's not the case, it would give the perception of there being a leader or someone that may have more pull than someone else. I like the idea of everyone being in the same boat. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think, if you compare this back to the task force that did parking, there was no facilitator. So they created a chair, and that was probably appropriate here. Most places where I've been on boards where there's been a facilitator present, you don't have a chair. And that's what the facilitator's role is to do, is to facilitate the meeting.
I have a question. It's probably discussed during the first meeting, which I missed, so I'm sorry if that's the case. On the resolution that was passed by the commission, it did state that at the first meeting, a chair and a vice chair would be elected. So was there a change that prevented that from happening?
No, that's still in the resolution. You are correct on the reading of that.
So should we then follow what they put forward?
Based on the resolution as passed by the city commission, it does call that a chair shall be nominated, and then that chair will nominate a vice chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then I would guess from that, we need to go ahead and go back to what we started to do, which was to nominate a chair. Is that correct, Jay?
Correct.
So there's already a motion and a second on the floor and some discussion.
That motion was withdrawn for Mr. Hathaway.
No, but
there's a
the
new
motion
motion.
to vote on whether we want to nominate a chair.
So I'm going to go on this limb a third time. Withdraw the motion since we have a duty to name a chair based on the charter, and I will go back and withdraw the motion of voting for a chair and then selecting a vice chair and yield to someone else to make a nomination as to who they would advocate to be the chair.
Are we still open for discussion on this a little bit before we do that?
Yes.
I just want to ask, what would the role of the chair be if it was something that was written into the commission's decision on the charter review?
Meetings may be scheduled by the chair or by majority vote of the members present and voting. I believe much like what you see elsewhere, you're going to see the chairperson kind of oversee the discussion and the flow a little bit.
I see. Okay.
Then I nominate Judy Riker to be chair.
I nominate Khalid Rashida to be chair.
No, I'm not. Thank you.
I also decline.
Point of order for Shay, if you could just clarify something. Do we explicitly have to do that because it's in the resolution, or can we opt not to do it? Because I'm sensing that nobody really wants the chair.
So Resolution 0125 subsection 5 says meetings and procedure, and it says the city clerk or designee shall provide a person to act as recording secretary for the committee. The initial meeting shall be called to order by the city clerk or designee, who shall call for the nominations of the chair from among the committee members. The chair shall be elected by majority vote of the members present and voting. The duly elected chair shall then call for the nominations for vice chair from among the committee members, who shall likewise be elected by majority vote of those members who are present and voting. The committee may adopt reasonable rules for procedure to govern the conduct of its business. Meetings may be scheduled by the chair or by the majority vote of the members present and voting. I am unsure if this got changed based on the fact that they voted for a facilitator at that point in time. But I don't have an amendment to this resolution.
Thank you.
So that was done before the facilitator was hired.
January 14th of 2025 was when it was passed.
Okay.
Can we table the motion and wait for clarification?
Sure.
Do they need a second?
You need a second on that?
Yes.
I'll second that.
We didn't have a motion, so we tabled it.
So
I
basically, we
moved
tabled
to
it.
table the motion, and it was seconded.
Who seconded the motion?
Mr. Wilson.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Member Billings,
No.
Member Fuselier,
No.
Member Hathaway,
No.
Member Eisen,
No.
Yes.
Member Palmer, yes. Member Poole,
No.
Member Rashidat,
Yes.
Member Riker,
Yes.
Member Rokier,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
and Member Wilson.
Yes.
We have 7 in the affirmative.
So that's tabling the motion for now, right? To let the facilitator do the role that she was hired for. And based on some public opinion tonight, there was a desire for more of a formal process to the decision-making and more of a look at pros and cons, right? So assuming that we can move forward with a more unbiased, balanced approach to these issues that's well documented, there shouldn't be a need for a chairman, is what I read into the conversation and the dialogue. That's a point for discussion, inviting other people to comment.
No, I agree with you, Dan.
My reason for voting no is until we get clarity from staff as to what the intention of the direction was, we can't fail to do that because it's clear based on what we have that we're supposed to elect someone as chair and vice chair.
I can't give a legal opinion, so I have to
Madam Attorney,
defer.
are we in violation of the ordinance?
It's a resolution.
It's a
isn't it?
resolution.
It's a
All right.
resolution.
So, at this point in time, we have not completed what's been written in the resolution, but I do say that the resolution is lacking any mention of a facilitator, which was hired, which would be the role of a chairperson, basically. When you typically have a facilitator, I don't think you would have a chairperson. So at this point in time, my opinion would be to move forward on this meeting, discuss what topics you have, and we'll get clarity as to the resolution for next meeting, and we can proceed forward with the chairperson at that point. Because at this point, I don't think we have anyone willing to take the chairperson, and I don't want to sit here and stalemate.
That sounds good to me.
Okay. So I would proceed forward with the meeting as scheduled at this point in time, and next charter review, we'll have clarity as to whether a chair or vice chair needs to be elected.
And then can I ask one more unrelated question that pertains to, the resolution or the current city charter? Right, and I asked this question the meeting previously, and I still not sure that I fully understood the answer. So I just want Shay to get another legal opinion from you. So in the current charter, there's a section 7.03 that says that there'll be a periodic review, right? And it says clearly, in the words that committee will be appointed by the city commission in 2026 and every 10 years thereafter. So my question is, I look at my calendar and it's not 2026. So just as you talked about that resolution, why are we moving forward with this charter review committee now when the current city charter, which was approved by the last board and then approved by the commission, then approved by the electorate, states 2026? So I just want a little bit more clarification. And, Spencer gave his interpretation. The other assistant attorney did as well. So I just wanted to better understand those words.
In line with what Mr. Hathaway and the previous attorney and the city attorney have articulated, it is fine to be here in 2025 to be reviewing this. There was direction given by commission. The intent of that, my understanding, was to have a 5-year review and it be completed by 2026. You all are fulfilling that duty at this point in time, so there is no harm in having this meeting at this point in time.
So the words "there shall be in 2026," we can just change the word "in" to "by"? So there shall be by 2026 is what you're saying. So legally, the words "in" and "by" are the same.
I'm just saying
And I'm just
right.
looking for another opinion, Mr.
Right.
Hathaway.
At this point in time, the commission can make the decision when they want to review it, which allows them to review the charter at any point in time throughout their tenure. They could do it every year if they wanted to. This was just giving them a benchmark that by 2026 or in 2026, you will definitely have this done. And you are fulfilling that duty of the charter at that point in time. That was the intent of that proposal, and it's being fulfilled. And the commission has basically deemed that this would happen now, like Mr. Hathaway had articulated previously.
No, we're 25 minutes in, we've accomplished absolutely nothing.
Well, we've listened to some public opinions, public comments, and, that's been addressed.
Again.
Good dialogue.
Move it along.
All right, so we're all good? We're gonna move forward. All righty, so one of the things in your packet, materials that you've been provided by the city clerk, is I did this spreadsheet that outlines the items that you all have spoken about, kind of summarizes them, talks about where we are, the language that you are proposing for change, and the items that we've not yet voted on. One of the items that we need to do this evening is we need to vote on those items or continue discussion on those items. And there it is up on the screen. So you see basically item number 2 down there is Article 2, City Commission, Section 2.03, Powers and Duties of Commission. And you see the language in the third column there. You see the red line, the verbiage that is being recommended for deletion. we have not had a formal vote on that particular item, so I would suggest we start with that item this evening for discussion.
I do want to point out that on section 2.11, the compensation piece, that statute did fail.
Yes.
So the legislature did not take up the compensation of local governments.
And when it's appropriate, I do want to speak on that.
Do you want to hold that comment until the end of the meeting? Okay, thank you. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Would anybody like to make a motion on that particular item? That is one of our items we have discussed at several meetings, but we've taken no final action.
Which item specifically are you referring to?
Right there on the second line, the second set of boxes, Article 2, City Commission, Section 2.03, Powers and Duties of Commission. The proposed verbiage, would be recommended to change to the City Commission shall annually perform performance reviews on the city manager and the city attorney. It takes out the following charter officers and the word "and the city clerk." Mainly, it's cleaning up the verbiage.
It's clean up, yeah, go ahead.
It's essentially deleting the city clerk as a charter officer. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think that's on the next page on Article 4, charter officers.
It's connected, I think. They're connected.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if we want to talk about the city clerk first before we vote on that, we're
I
more
think
than
that would
welcome
be
to
a
do
good
so.
idea.
Yeah, I think this is a byproduct of the role of the city clerk.
Because I need to know why are we getting rid of the city clerk as a charter officer? What are the pros and cons?
Okay, so if we want to go to that, yeah, he's changing the screen. Can you move the screen over so we can see whoever's controlling the screen? It's not me, you're lucky. If you can move it over to the second page there. There we go, down at the bottom. Okay, down at the very bottom of page 2, Article 4, Charter Officers, Section 4.04, City Clerk. So you see in the second column, the current verbiage as it relates to the duties of the city clerk. In the proposed verbiage, you see where it has been rewritten. The words that in red are being deleted. You see them lined through. The words in blue, instead of duties, it would say appointment, and and the new words would say, there shall be a city clerk who shall be appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the city manager. The verbiage is, again, see, it's down here because we kind of didn't talk about them in order, but it goes back to 2.03 that we just talked about. So this would be, you were correct, it would be the appropriate item for us to talk about first.
Yeah, so Susan, I think this would be great to move that article to the front page, because
Yes.
those ones that you're actually voting on, then everything else just becomes a procedural change from there. And then I really do want to thank you for putting together this document, because this gives you a chance to really see things. The reasoning column there, I think it'd be great if we can show both sides of the story, which is what the public had kind of asked for in the public comments. So if that can show, either reasons for, reasons against, or pros or cons, or reasons for the proposed or versus reasons for the current verbiage, some sort of both sides of the story, I think would be really good to show there. And that would help, both the dialogue and the understanding and communication to the commission when we get there.
Okay.
If I could interject here. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been doing a small project, and what I did was I went and looked at every charter in Volusia County, and I put them in a large database to try to sort and assess it. I can't tell you the exact number off the top of my head because I don't have it in front of me, but the majority of the clerks were no longer charter officers, because charter officers give advice. Charter officers manage large segments of the government, the city manager and the city attorney. And nothing against Sharon, she has a responsible job, but the city clerk's job is less in that. It's more of a service-related kind of function as opposed to a management, decision-making, policy-making type activity. When you put them into the charter position, the management of them, again, Judy's been on the commission. other people have been working with commissions, you'll find it's very difficult to have 5 people try to tell somebody what to do. And that causes issues, and I think that it makes it simpler to have the reporting function directly to the city manager. Most of what the clerk does is what she's doing tonight. Okay, it's more of a supporting role as opposed to a management decision role. She provides access to the public for public documents and does an excellent job with that. But that's where her main functions are, as opposed to the city attorney who's constantly either involved in litigation or making recommendations, or just what Shay's doing tonight, helping guide us in making decisions in here. The city manager sits in that corner chair at every meeting, writes down every comment from a citizen, then goes back and finds those answers and reports back to the commission so they can make policy decisions while he manages the workforce. So to me, it makes more sense to have fewer people reporting directly to the commission, which is policy and which has a specific prohibition against direction of city employees, and let the clerk do their job without that interference. I don't see any reason to have it. And as I said, most of the ones I read, which I have in the database, and I can get you next time the exact number, don't report. They're all city manager reportees.
Palmer, I have your answer. I actually questioned Carrie Avalone on this, our attorney, and she responded back to me that 11 cities in Volusia County have manager-appointed clerks. The only ones who do not are us, New Smyrna, Edgewater, Pearson, and Orange City. So there's only 4 who do not have manager-appointed city clerks. Now, DeLand, she tells me, has a city clerk auditor who's appointed by the commission, but the auditing the financial records is a very different role than the traditional role of a city clerk. So he or she holds a dual job there. So it's a little bit different. So really, we're quite in the minority with regard to our city clerk reporting to the commission. My position would be more like with your comments, because of the administrative duties of the city clerk, but also because on city commission, you're part-time. You're not in the office every single day. You're not in the office all day long. You cannot be available to the city clerk. Neither can they be available to you 100% of the time. So you're not really managing them. So they're getting no management. Now, in the terms of a city manager, they are the manager of the city. They're the CEO. So they should be able to manage on their own. And the city attorney protects the city as well as the commissioners, keeps us all out of trouble, a professional designation. But because of the job of the city clerk, agreeing with you, I think that it's more appropriate that she or he be under the city manager who can manage their work every day, all day. And second, there's that position cannot go to human resources if there's an issue. And neither can their employees. Your employees can't go to human resources if there's an issue with you. So that puts their employees in a position that has less ability to solve issues than the regular employees. So I see a city clerk position more like the fire chief or the police chief or the finance director or those. So that's my opinion on that.
I have no background in this, but I'd sure like to ask Khalid what he thinks about it.
I was waiting for you to finish, and I'll give my 2 cents. From an operational standpoint, the city clerk, as Mr. Palmer mentioned, she provides service to the commission and to the city. I think she needs to be, or he needs to be under the city manager, like the 11 other cities that we have. The most important point that Ms. Stryker mentioned is about the human resources. If there's an issue with the city clerk, having the city clerk being a charter officer the city manager cannot do anything until the commission gets involved. And I think from that point, I think it adds up. This is one of the pros, I think it gets there. The city clerk, from a streamlining the process, I think, having the city clerk under the city manager makes the process a lot smoother and will streamline the process. Because the commission is not there, as she mentioned. The commission is not there all the time. They see the commission once in a while, depending on how often they come and visit or they email the city clerk. But from an operational standpoint, I think when I look at the pros and cons, I think the pros outweigh the cons way more than I can even think. So that's from the experience that I had with working with the city clerk for the last 35 years. We had 4 or 5 city clerks. They're all good city clerks. But again, when you have 5 people giving you directions, it's really difficult for the city clerk to even navigate through that. And I think having the city manager there to navigate, because since the city manager is already navigating among the 5 members of the commission. So that's my 2 cents to it.
The piece that kind of gives me the most heartburn about it is the election piece. You know, if you run for office and you're going in to sit with the city clerk, you want independent kind of advice that this person may end up working for you. They may end up serving the current commission. They may not. Now, they're hired by the current commission, so there's that. It's the same issue, but I think it is different. So the question that I don't know the answer to, and I think the purpose behind having an independent city clerk was for predominantly, I think, for the election officer piece. Do the clerks in those other municipalities still serve as the elections officer?
As far as I know, they do.
And that was actually my exact question was going to be, as we talk about 11 cities versus 4 cities, are the job responsibilities and job description the same for all those cities? And that's something where I don't want to just have an opinion. I think it is. I'd like to understand that. So what are the responsibilities of our city clerk? And is there a way for us to have a job description and what those responsibilities are? And then how does that compare to the other cities? Because there are pros and cons, and that's what we'd want to have out. And I would be very concerned, you know, Mr. Hathaway, about that. You know, knowing people that have recently run for commission and how valuable it was to have access to the city clerk, you know, not under the city management organization.
I have a question. I hear what you say, Dan, but I'm not sure. I mean, Mr. Hathaway's run for election, I run for election, Judy's run for election. The city clerk basically received my documents, had me fill out some forms. Subsequent to me running, halfway through that election, all of the reporting process got turned over to the supervisor of elections. So really the city clerk just receives your candidacy and forwards that to the supervisor of elections. Doesn't do much after that because all of your campaign finance reporting contributions is done electronically directly to the the supervisor of election. I don't see that that's a challenge coming in to a city employee. I don't think it's any different than coming in to get a permit for something or anything else. That just become a person that handles and understands how to prepare those documents and send it out. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't see the conflict as much as before when they handled everything.
I mean, it's a service that the city clerk provide as the service that the city manager provides. So when we have an election and we have 6 people running for election and they come and they meet with the city manager is unbiased. So whatever information, whatever details that I give this candidate, it gets to the other candidate. So I used to meet with the candidates prior to the election, giving them the chance to ask any questions if they have any specific issue. So that's the service that you provide. So I'm not sure what the city clerk would be different in terms of the service she provides if she was under the city manager or under the charter office. I don't know what difference. It's the same thing. That service she's going to provide or he's going to provide that service to anybody who's running for election. And as Mr. Palmer mentioned, right after that thing is there, then it will be turned into the supervisor of election. So really, it's a matter of just going through the process with the candidates and provide the application, whatever information they need, whatever proper document that they have to submit in order to be as a candidate.
The other thing I think you have to take into consideration, I think we're all aware of some recent issues that have happened here, okay? Because that person was a charter officer and went to the charter, outside investigators had to be brought in, cost to the city, etc. Whereas if the person was under civil service, as someone mentioned, they can go to HR and try to resolve the issue internally at HR. So there's, you can look at it in the most objective as you can without personalities and say, well, there's a cost savings or potential cost savings by not having it as a charter officer.
And Palmer, you mentioned, the situation that happened recently, and I just want to make sure that this isn't a knee-jerk reaction to that, and that's why I'd like to really make sure that I understand the responsibilities of the role. And Susan, I know you tried to speak several times, so it'd be great if there's a way to have that job description and have more information to understand.
Well, I think we kind of have the cart in front of the horse if we do the job description, because the job description is going to be the responsibility of the HR department and the city manager to put that job description together. So we haven't made that decision, but I will tell you, historically, years ago, city clerks answered to the commission. Lots of department heads answered to the commission. Over time, that has changed, and the rule across the country, not just here in Florida, is it's reflective of what you saw here in Volusia County, which is the majority of the cities, more than the majority of the cities, the clerk is no longer a charter officer. They answer to the city manager. You will notice that those cities that were read off that still have the clerk answering to the elected body are your smaller cities here in the county. So sometimes they don't have the number of people. They're arranged a little differently than the larger cities, but the clerk reporting to the city manager is the norm out there these days, because they're treated more like a department head. They have one boss instead of 5, 7, 9, however many elected officials you have. They have one boss. They're an integral part of that day-to-day operation of the organization, hence why they've been moved to be under the umbrella of the city manager.
Susan, I'd like to add one more thing. In my experience with city clerk, as a charter officer, if they were under the purview of the city manager, they would have some protection of their time from the public. The public is free to visit with a city manager, and the public is free to visit with a city attorney, and as a charter officer, the public is free to visit with a city clerk. And I witnessed a lot of visiting going on with the city clerk and taking of their time, not only to just get documents, but to sit and discuss the politics of the city and who's doing what to whom and who's whatever. And that was only just when I would come in and out, maybe for meetings or whatnot, and 2 hours at a time. And there was no protection of that person's time there because they were a charter officer and their job was to listen to the public. So I think that if we had some protection for that person under the guise of the city manager, I think that would be important to establish getting their work done in a timely manner and not have that distraction, because it really is it's not right. Yes. It's not right for that to happen to our clerk. And it did.
You raised a very good point.
So we've heard a lot of pros for moving it. What about the cons? What are they? I'm truly asking because I don't know.
And that's why I wanted to see the current job description, not the cart ahead of the horse. What's the current job description? So what do we lose if the city clerk moves from reporting to the commission to reporting to, the city manager? Do we lose any accreditation on election certification? Do we lose anything? Is there anything that's in that job description today that we would miss out on?
It's pretty short and directly from the charter. It's, the city clerk shall be the custodian of all city records, shall give notice of commission meetings to its members and the public, shall keep minutes of its proceedings, serve as the election official, and perform such other duties as are assigned by this charter and the city commission. That's it.
So would those roles be changed in any way if
I don't think so.
if they reported to the city manager?
I don't think so. I think that those services will be, whether they are under the city manager or under the commission. I don't see any changes from the job description, honestly.
I deal a lot with the
Yeah, I
city
think it
clerk.
is a question for council. Why, yeah.
I deal a
So
lot.
question for the city attorney then is what would change? And, Mr. Khaled's comments are, I don't understand it, but just from your standpoint. And then why was it set up that they were reporting through to the commission to begin with instead of the city manager?
I can't answer the why. I don't know. I wasn't here when they did that change. But what I can tell you is that the duties and those responsibilities would basically be moved into a job description of the city clerk. And it would maintain the same thing. I believe there is already a job description of the city clerk within the city anyway that incorporates these duties as well. So basically you're just taking it out of the charter, and then her job description would stand on its own, which I believe is already in existence at this point in time. And I'm not sure if within the charter there is a separate section that talks about her being the electoral official, and I don't believe that's being removed. So she'll still remain the electoral official, and that will still remain within the charter as her duty, and that will be separate. So that doesn't change regardless of where you're moving her. She still remains the electoral official.
And then the job requirements or the qualifications wouldn't change at all for future appointees. So this has nothing to do with the current city clerk.
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken, there's a certification, correct, Jen? Yeah, there's a certification for city clerks. I see it on the bottom of
The
documents.
CMC certification, I don't think that would be the decision when you draft the job description, whether you want to make that mandatory or not. Not all clerks have it.
Right.
A lot of them get it over time, once they become a city clerk. But I don't, whether you wanted it to be mandatory or not, I'm not sure that it.
And I would also think, Shay, correct me if I'm wrong, that under the charter, the city clerk had a contract, right?
Correct.
So some of that stuff of the job might have been described in that contract also, that maybe varied, if it did, from what was in the thing. My guess is probably pretty much the same. I've never seen the contract.
I mean, the only changes would be that they will report to the city manager. They will be evaluated by the city manager.
Right.
And it will not be a contract. They will be like a department head. But other duties, they will be exactly the same as it stands today.
Would the clerk still be a member of the canvassing board?
Why not?
It's just kind of an unusual situation that I don't know, it's only because that's always the way we've done it, that's all I ever say. So we got two commissioners and the clerk serve as the canvassing board to certify the elections. Now, the two commissioners would serve alongside a department head, essentially, on the canvassing board.
But she's still the city clerk. She's still in charge of the elections. You aren't changing that.
But she's answerable to somebody in the middle.
But that is the way you're going to see it in most other jurisdictions these days. I think, it's, I think Ms. Riker and Khaled both have brought it up, is you're changing the umbrella under which the city clerk works. You're not changing her duties, her responsibilities. I shouldn't say her, he or she. What you're looking at changing is that they now have one boss who they can go to 24 hours a day and get a hold of and get answers to any situation that they're having to deal with, versus getting 5 people together if there's a decision that needs to be made. So I think that's one of the biggest situational differences. The other thing is that I will say a city clerk working under the city manager is the most common form, as I've already pointed out, that you see out there today. Though that other is kind of a holdover from the past when things were structured a little bit differently within the local governments.
And Mr. Hathaway, if you look to section 3.04 canvassing board, that indicates that the city clerk is in there. I don't believe that's been proposed to be changed.
Right,
so
that's what I was- but
It
I
would
just-
remain, okay.
It just seems to me just to be a little odd, that's all, but I don't feel real strongly one way or the other.
So based on all the communication that we've discussed a lot of pros and not a lot of cons. I think we've got enough support to try to bring a motion.
Would you like to make a motion?
Let me give that a shot. All right. Section 4.02, 4.04, there is a motion to change the city charter to allow the city clerk to report to the city manager versus the commission.
Second for discussion.
Second.
Mr. Rashidad has seconded it.
I think in the beginning of the meeting, we heard about that we make decisions so quick. So I just want to make sure that before we make this vote, to make sure that no other member on the dais has any other concerns or questions.
I have a logistics question. If we go ahead and approve these changes as designated here, are these three separate changes that would go before the voters that way? Or would it be one change to make, and then the language would just follow the proposal if it were going to go on the ballot, if the commission approved it?
Are you talking about because this shows up on several different?
Right.
It would have to be three different changes because it's in three different sections.
So, but you wouldn't have, the electorate wouldn't vote on each one. It should be, anything that would follow it.
That's the question I have.
Yeah.
Is this going to be broken down that each, for the referendum, it's going to be to amend section 401 to change these 5 words, amend section 402?
It should be just amend section 4.04, and then any other subsequent wording will follow it.
I would agree that that would be the most streamlined, efficient way to do it. If you are removing the charter officer out of the charter, then anything that would touch the charter officer would also be amended.
So the referendum would say to
How it's put
change.
on a ballot, I'm not sure yet, and that's something we can dive into. That's outside of my realm at this point in time. It would make sense that once you make one thing that affects, that dominoes effect, you don't need to vote on the dominoes, right? Because they're going to fall.
Okay, so following that to its logical conclusion, we do that. We say we want to strike 404, and it does impact, for instance, the canvassing board now doesn't have a third member because we've eliminated that charter officer.
No, you can still have the city clerk.
She's still the city clerk, though.
Yeah, that's the
Does the
question. I
canvassing
think.
board need to have charter officers?
No, it does not.
No, but the concern I have is if it's solely at the discretion of the city manager, and the city manager says, I'm not going to fill that position. I don't have the budget for it this year. I mean, there's not really any, what's the commission going to do? Say, well, if you don't fill the city clerk's job, we're going to fire you. I mean, I'm just trying to, this is a lot of things it's going to touch. It's been that way for a long time. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm just.
No, and that's interesting, because we've asked about cons, and I haven't heard anybody on the dais have a con yet, but that's where I'd like to hear from Shay and from Susan some more. But yeah, if the city manager has the right to say, hey, I'm not going to have a city clerk, that's a pretty big con.
I don't think.
And I know it was a fictitious comment.
I don't think you'd ever see that happen because the responsibilities of the clerk involve the elections. It's kind of like the responsibility of the finance director is the budget and paying the bills. You wouldn't fire the finance director and not replace them. You have to have those positions. So I think that's an excellent question, but pretty far-fetched that it would ever happen.
So what are the cons of making the move?
All right, I have something, I don't know if it's a con or not, but I mean, would this change the effectiveness or anything for the commissioners by not having her to report to?
Not that I can think of.
I can't think of any.
That's just something, that was a hole that I thought we should fill.
Through my own experience, I can't see it. I mean, the clerk is still going to be the person who provides agenda packets and those kind of things, public records. I mean, the duties will be in that job description, and I don't think anybody's looking at seeing those duties change.
Right.
It's just who the person who sits in the clerk's position, who they report to. Do they report to 5 people who are very hard to get a hold of sometimes, or do they have one person that they now report to?
I understand, thank you.
So,
I would like to add to that we're focusing, and it's a good focus for discussion, but we're focusing on this narrow duty of the elections, which occur infrequently compared to the regular duties that she does every day, or he does every day, which is answer to citizens who want public documents, probably the biggest thing that she handles. So if I can't imagine if she works for the city manager is not going to fill the person who gets probably the most requests for information and who then handles that through the rest of the city government. So she doesn't sit on the top of all that. She becomes the coordinator to go get that information. So I can't see them, I appreciate that as a con, but I don't see the city manager not hiring the city clerk. And I don't think the fact that she's a city employee would impact greatly that canvassing board. I don't know the legality of it, but I just say that the operations of it, I don't think it would be a problem.
I mean, as far as I know, it didn't affect the other cities, the other 11 cities that they have the city clerk and the city manager. There are certain positions in the city that I call them major positions that, in case of any budget cuts and so forth, I think that would be one of the ones that you cannot touch. For example, like having whether it's a finance director or a police chief or a fire chief. So there is certain positions that you could get away with for a short period of time, but that's not one of them.
To that point, earlier we made a decision to get more information before making a decision. Does it make sense for us to see what that language looks like in the change to say that whether or not a charter officer, they remain in certain roles and the role must be filled before we call the vote? Maybe at a later meeting?
And just for your clarification, Mr. Hathaway, I believe the Code of Ordinance under, I believe, Article 4, Officers and Employees, it says there shall be a city clerk who shall be appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the city commission. Granted, that will be amended upon this, but it does say there shall be a city clerk. So at least we do have that. And shall attend all meetings, shall be the custodian of the seal. So we do have duties outlined within our code itself.
And the only question I would have is the number of items that are going to end up on the ballot. If people are voting on 5 different language changes because it's in 5 separate issues of the charter, I think we're going to start confusing the heck out of folks, but that's all.
And we can get clarity on that on the next meeting,
Yes.
Shay?
Yes.
But that would
I
be,
agree completely.
but that wouldn't be a reason to not make the move if that's the right thing to do, right?
Right, sure.
So,
Right. Sure. Just curious.
I'm not sure what we're waiting to clarify.
Oh, to see how the ballot's going to be structured, whether it will be 5 different votes of yes or no to change the charter based on the fact that when you remove the city clerk, you're going to touch about 2 or 3 other sections that fall because of it. I think there's probably a way within that vote that says upon removal of city clerk, the following other sections will be modified to reflect this, and then it can be probably all incorporated in one amendment to it. It's just the wording, people don't like to read things. The longer the ballot is, the less they want to, and I think that's what Mr. Hathaway's concerned about. But we're trying to get clarification whether we could do one vote that incorporates all the changes, or if it will have to be 5 separate yes or no votes.
I would want one, if this is just to eliminate the charter position of the city clerk, I think it should be one question on the ballot. It should not be 5. That would be what I want to make sure, if that would be my 2 cents on this motion,
Well,
whatever.
the question is, should the city clerk be a charter officer? And that's the question to think.
Sure.
You make that decision, the others roll from it because they're just merely deletions.
Subsections.
They're not policy changes, they're deletions because they're no longer a charter officer.
So do we need to modify the motion to consolidate or not?
No, at this point in time, you have a motion to amend Article 4, Charter Officer, or Charter Officers 4.04. That was seconded for discussion. I'm not sure if you're still in discussion phase at this point in time. If not, it can be called to a vote.
I'll call for a vote.
Member Billings,
Yes.
Member Fusilier,
Yes.
Member Hathaway,
No.
Member Ison,
Yes.
Member Palmer,
Yes.
Member Poole,
No.
Member Riker,
Yes.
Member Rashidat,
Yes.
Member Rokier,
No.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we'll bring back some additional information about how it will appear on the ballot at the next meeting, just to help clarify that question there. Right. Okay. All right, well, given that, if we go back, the person doing the AV is going to be really upset with me. We would like to go back to page 1. So.
Anybody ever read the short story by Dostoevsky called The Death of Ivan Ilyich?
Yes.
Sharon must have felt like Ivan Ilyich. during that. He died slowly and laid on the couch listening to everyone talking about him as he passed. Sorry about that. It would have been nice if we could have just asked you these questions.
That was a high school read.
That was a
Wasn't
good
it?
one, right?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And once again, this is a vote to have this go on to the commission, and then the commission will decide what they want to do, and then that will go on to the body, the electorate.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And that's where I do think it would be really important to better understand how would that ballot be set up. And basically, it's going to be removing the city charter officer. Right?
Correct.
And that's where on your document you're showing here, I really do think showing pros and cons and presenting those pros and cons to the commission would be very useful in, the communication.
Yeah, I have no problem adding another column on a bigger sheet of paper, but no, make this type a lot smaller. All right, so, and we will bring back to the next meeting we'll figure out how that will have to appear or what the methodology is to put that onto the ballot so that it's not 5 different sections, boom, 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 you have to vote on. But for the moment now, we're going to vote on the sections just to be sure we're all in sync. So row 2 down there, as you can see in section 2.03, powers and duties of commission, we go over there and you see this would be in correlation with the action you all just took. The proposed verbiage would get changed to say the city commission shall annually perform performance reviews on the city manager and the city attorney, because with the removal of the city clerk as a charter officer, they would be the only two that the commission would have to redo the annual reviews on, would now be the city manager and the city attorney. So what we would need to do here is, if there is discussion, proceed with discussion, or put a motion out there on the table and proceed with discussion.
Well, we can move in second for discussion.
Right. Yes,
So I'm
ma'am.
going to move for approval on the proposed verbiage.
Second for discussion.
Are we doing these one at a time, or are these omnibus?
Excuse me?
Are we doing the change in 2.03 and 2.05 as separate votes?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right.
So we had a second. I'm sorry, I didn't know who seconded. You did. Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
So in the proposed verbiage, why would you remove the words following charter officers? Because you still want to have the commission perform performance reviews on the charter officers, which at this point would be the city manager and the city attorney. So just striking the city clerk would be fine.
That's true.
But I think you accomplish it by
But I think it's important to say the word charter officers, right? So the commission is performing reviews on charter officers.
It's just supposed by, it's really just grammar.
Okay. Grammatical, we can leave those. If you want to leave following charter officers in there, I see no reason why you couldn't.
I think that makes sense to say charter officer.
I'll amend my motion then to say performance reviews on the following charter officers. Leave that in.
I'll second the amended motion.
Are you going to call a question?
It's at the pleasure of the board. If you're ready
Call the
for
vote.
the motion or you want a discussion.
Fire away.
Call the roll.
Please.
call the,
Just a little bit more discussion. So it's already been an 8-3 vote that the city clerk will move and not be a commission officer. So now we're just voting on, as that's been done, here the revised wording.
Now it's the cleanup language. vote.
cleanup
cleanup.
language. Yes. So I think, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll? Sure.
Member Billings,
Yes.
Member Fuselier,
Yes.
Member Hathaway,
Yes.
Member Ison,
Yes.
Member Palmer,
Yes.
Member Poole,
Yes.
Member Rashidat,
Yes.
Member Riker,
Yes.
Member Rokier,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you. All right. Again, so now we come down to the next item there. You see that this is this is in Article 2, City Commission, Section 2.05, Prohibition C, Interference with Administration. You see the current language, and you see the words proposed to be changed. It would say employees who are subject to the direction and supervision of the city manager and the city attorney, and solely through these charter officers. Again, it's deleting the words "the city clerk." So again, it's a correction that will correlate with 2.03, which is what you just voted on. So I would be looking for discussion or a motion for discussion.
I'll make a motion for discussion to approve the language as listed in the spreadsheet for Section 203, 205, prohibitions of interference.
I second that.
Any discussion or questions? No questions? All right, Madam Clerk.
Member Billings,
Yes.
Member Fuselier,
Yes.
Member Hathaway,
Yes.
Member Ison,
Yes.
Member Palmer,
Yes.
Member Poole,
Yes.
Member Rashidat,
Yes.
Member Riker,
Yes.
Member Rokier,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you. All right, Section 2.11, compensation, you all previously had discussed that, and the Charter Review Committee was recommending no changes.
I think we were waiting to see what the legislature was going to do. And
Right.
that law's failed, so but I don't know if anybody wants to have that conversation now.
That would be the pleasure of the committee.
Why was it put on the list of subjects to discuss?
It was brought up by somebody, I don't remember who, I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
And I think it was also a part of the discussion because of what was happening in the legislature. We didn't know what was happening.
I think it was brought up by the city attorney in the first night,
Right.
as a number of things that she had heard were of interest
Right.
for the committee.
Yeah, that's why, I don't know who
Yes.
the person was. It was just a list that, she'd been
Yeah,
keeping.
it was recommendations that were given to the city commission that she had heard from someplace.
Right. So. All right, so the next one, the very last one.
Excuse me,
I'm
can
sorry.
What are we
stick
talking
on that one
about?
for just a second? Because I just have a question as to, honestly, why don't we just say that the city commission shall determine, and they shouldn't, that it should just be like a cost of living increase as the other city employees get on an annual basis? Why can't it default to that?
In the charters I looked at, you see that in many of them, a reference to the CPI being done.
I'd like to make a comment about that, if I may. I think now's the appropriate time. Initially, our facilitators provided us with information from the League of Cities regarding salaries of commissioners and mayors. It was incorrect. It was incorrect. It's 4 years old, and the information provided was 4 years old. So I questioned that to our facilitators via email through the city clerk, which we were instructed to do. And we were provided with updated information. But then request was made, well, wait a minute, why can't we get this information from our own city's HR person? So the document that's in your packet is the actual salaries of the commissioners and the mayor. We were also provided by a League of Cities information by population, cities like our size that are on the East Coast, and we we're kind of in the middle. And again, looking at the corrected data of 28,000 salary for a mayor and 21,000 for a city commissioner is even below that. I think some of us know our prior city mayor decided not to run after he successfully ran one and he came back for a second term. And I think some of that was financially motivated. It's very hard for someone that's not retired or a fixed pension to sit on this diocese. And I think that's why I asked for information. Where are we right now? And I think right now, based on our city and our population, I think right now we're below where we should be. And I'm thinking, and I've got salary informations provided most recently by the facilitator, and it shows the increase each year going up by the percentage from Volusia County. But where I'm thinking is we need to true up right now our mayor and our council members, because they're not going to vote or bring a motion to give themselves a raise. I think it's up to this committee to see and feel, are they adequately compensated by the amount of hours that they spend in both their positions as mayor and council members. I think they're underpaid, and we're a premium city. So I think it would be reflective of this charter review committee to have discussions around that based on the most correct information that we have. And if we feel that the compensation isn't really just based on the time and hours and the efforts that they're putting in, that we true them up to a certain level, and then we can revert back to whatever Volusia County approves. And I think that's what they've done the last 3 years. And again, it's quite low based on 4-year-old information that's showing. So no telling where they are. That they're anywhere from up to $39,000 for a mayor, looking at this diagram. And I just think we should have some dialogue about that, because the commissioners are not going to approve a raise for themselves or for the mayor.
If I recall correctly, the current one now is what, 50% of the Volusia County?
That's the ordinance, I believe, is the mayor is 50% of the county chairman and the commission's 50% of the county council.
Okay.
So what I think we should have some discussion about, I feel are really low. Maybe some other folks on this diocese don't. However, I believe there should be at least a true up to get them somewhere where they need to be, because some folks can't afford to live on, even if they only come in twice a month, which is probably what Dan would say. They're only coming in twice a month. Well, there's a lot more to that for everyone that sits up here. And I'm just trying to be fair and equitable to somebody that can't ask for a raise themselves. And it's truly not even for who sits in here today. I'm looking for 10 years in the future or 15 years in the future. If we got somebody really bright and they could be a super mayor for us or super commissioner, but they can't afford the position, that's a problem.
So my comment, and since I was referenced, I'll come out here. All of our commissioners work 80 hours a week. They're not paid anything compared to the hours that they put in, but they're not doing this for the salary. Right, they're doing this for their love of the city and for what they want to get accomplished. So I don't think there's any amount of money that we can pay them that would be worth what they're doing. So now it just comes down to how do you handle this in a responsible way, so it's not done by ordinance, it's done by some sort of a process. But I think everybody concurs that the work that the commissioners do from a dollar per hour standpoint, forget about it, right?
But still, data 4 years old, we're well below middle ground for our salary positions, so that's not right.
I'd just like to say I've worked in various municipalities, and the ones that I've worked in, none of the commissioners nor the mayor ever received compensation. They did it because they thought that's what they needed to do for their community. They weren't doing it for the money. Some of those had full-time jobs as well as served as commissioners and mayor. So
so did our last
when
mayor.
I'm seeing some of these salaries, I'm going, oh my gosh, the people I've worked with never received a cent.
Yeah, well, times have changed.
Oh, yes, they do, daily.
Times have changed. So is it all? Sometimes it's more than just the love. Sometimes you got to feed family, feed children. So I think it's worth having a discussion about. That's why I brought it up.
And I think to add to that discussion, just for the point of full disclosure, please keep in mind one of the things that I did not provide in your packet, which is on page 33, It gives the commission's last 5 years of salary and the mayor. But keep in mind, they also are entitled to medical, vision, and dental. They do get that, as well as they also get life insurance, and they do get a contribution to the Florida State Retirement System. So just for full disclosure, so just so you know this, they don't get just what they get paid. There are other items that go within that pay package, so to speak. Sure. So I just wanted to be sure that we pointed that out for full disclosure.
I believe also that if they have their own health insurance, correct me if I'm wrong, Callan, they can get a stipend in lieu of accepting the city's health insurance, correct?
Yes, that's correct also.
Recently has changed, yeah.
Yeah, that is still correct.
But I still agree with Commissioner Eisen there. These folks, and I think, Dan, you said it correctly, they put in far more hours than we actually paid them for. I don't think we'd ever be able to pay them as much money as they work at it. But I think we need to do something that maybe is a little better in terms of just saying we're going to take 50% of Volusia County. So does that mean they do 50% less work than our District 3 representative does? I doubt it. But that said, I think we need to get to what you're saying. I like the idea of balance it up to where it belongs now and then put some type of automatic multiplier, whether it's the same as the city gets or the CPI or whatever you want to put onto it. And then it takes it out of the voting requirement for them, and it takes it out of somebody sitting there worrying about it every year.
But it still would have to be voted on by everybody.
Yes.
To give raises to public officials. So it would have to be worded a certain way.
Well,
so
it would be,
could
it would,
passed.
if you put, a lot of the charters I read just said will be adjusted annually by the CPI. That's an automatic. That doesn't require anything, it's already there. But if you put it in so where it has to do a resolution, and you tie it to maybe when the commission finalizes the millage rate and the budget, they're finalizing the pay raise for all city employees, so you can word it to whatever the city employees get. So there's like a couple of options there.
Well, that makes sense to me.
In lieu of Mr. Eisen's comments with data, I wonder if it makes sense to look at, the way it's defined today, making an adjustment to 60% or 70, whatever is fair, and then annually going forward to a CPI adjustment based on what's going on externally to the rest of the employees.
Are you suggesting taking it out of the ordinance altogether and making it a charter issue? Is that what we're going?
It seems like that's the direction the discussion's going, and I think the benefit of that is the commission obviously doesn't have to do it themselves, which they never will. And if they do, then voters will turn around and typically punish them for that. Right. But I don't disagree with that. I think making it a set, it needs to not be a political football. We need the best people we can get. We need it to be people wanting to do it for the right reasons, but also understanding that it's expensive to do this. Even if you get elected unopposed, the cost of traveling all over the city, the cost of maintaining it's brutal. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, when I ran, as a quick aside, several people called my boss and asked for me to be fired because I was violating dual office holding. Turned out, obviously, that's not the case. It doesn't apply to assistant state attorneys. But I had to have a very uncomfortable conversation with my boss and some of these things. And it was certainly distracting from my mission at hand. But there's more costs than just, the fuel to get here and to travel to these meetings and to go all around the city. You give up so much of your personal life, you give up all of your free time, you give up your anonymity, you give up so much to serve. And people do it for everybody I've ever met. And the people in the industry, they do it for exactly the right reasons, and they should be remunerated for that, in my opinion.
Well, then you would have to pick a salary that would be a living salary, right?
Or at least try to get there as close as you can afford or agree upon.
Well, if it's not a living salary, it doesn't solve your problem. For instance, I worked full-time when I was commissioner and took a lot from my family and my business because I lost business, because people wouldn't give me business because they said, I would rather have your vote. So guess what? You're not going to get that development project at your title company. Right. So I got actually a letter of release from a major developer that I had to give that up. And I just always trusted that God was going to take care of me, and he did, and I did very well, and so that worked out just fine. Jason McGurk, he worked full-time. Adam Berenger, he worked full-time. I mean, it was an augmentation, not that I think we were at 14,000 back then, so it was like hardly, you didn't do it for that. You did it because you wanted to make a change, and you saw a need, and you felt you could do something that would be helpful. And it was a calling. I mean, people say, why did you run? Well, it was a calling. It was just a calling. I can't even give you a better answer than that. You're just called to it. So, but you're right. I mean, and I saw what your dad did, Spencer. He was constantly on the go with the city. And he was a full-time employee and had his own business. You almost have to have your own business, and just like in national politics when it first started out, people would leave their own business and go to Washington and do their stint, and then they would come back and run their farms or whatever they were doing. So it was never meant to be a full-time position for someone. It was always meant to bring whatever you have for a few years that you can give and give it. So there's just a whole different way of looking at it that we're discussing here today.
And Judy, I totally agree with that. And also, the newcomers coming on, I think that's really important, not to be discouraging, because it is so embarrassing low, but there needs to be some middle ground. I mean, I can pick a number out just based on some of the information Sharon's provided as a starting point if we want to at least try to get, like I said, a true up, and then we can put something else in.
If I may add, Dan, since it's in my mind, looking at time-wise, I guess Sandra mentioned that the cities that she worked in, that they did not get any compensation for being a mayor or a commission, and that's probably true at that time. But I think if you look at the pros and cons in terms of compensating, I don't think we will ever be able to pay the commission or the mayor the salary or whatever that really they deserve. You have some commissioners that they attend every meeting, every public meeting for the city. We have one of them in the room tonight. I mean, Vice Mayor Martin, she attends every meeting that you can think of. Sometimes those meetings last 3-4 hours. Same thing with the mayor and other commissioners. I think, from my point of view, I think what we need to do is we need to adjust the salary. I don't think we'll ever be in to compensate them what they deserve, but at least adjust the salary and then make it connected to the city staff. If they receive cost of living, they will be able to do that. This way the commission doesn't have to deal with it. So that would be my recommendation.
And I think the days of people expecting this to be a part-time job are over. I mean, that was unanimously the negatives that I got during the last campaign is we don't want someone that has a full-time job. We want someone that's going to be devoted solely to the city. And I think if that's what the people expect, and we should compensate the folks that are willing to do that. As far as throwing a number out there for discussion purposes, right now it's 50% of the county council. Just for discussion purposes, what if we upped that to 75% and then included a CPI?
I think we need to look at the most updated numbers from around the cities. I don't know if we have to.
Yeah, that's it right here.
So if you have that, look to see what the numbers are and just.
What updated list of this.
It was provided last time. Yeah.
But it's not updated.
Those are the old ones.
Yeah.
I
Well,
agree with
unfortunately, we
Colleen.
can't get that from the League of Cities, right, Susan?
They don't have it. They're working on it. They're behind. They said sometime in the next couple of months they'll have the past 3 years worth of data, but they don't have it right now.
If you want it from local cities, I'm sure a public records request can be put into each clerk for the commissioner salaries.
That'd be nice, because even the information we got that was not correctly reported to the League of Cities, is what I was told.
I think that's important in terms of comparison before we throw a number around. This is my opinion.
Yeah,
Is it reasonable, and I don't know the answer, is it reasonable to assume that the county council members make the highest salary of any of these similar jobs?
Daytona Beach might be up there.
Yeah, it's mostly Broward paid more, but we were looking at strictly from a population on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And we were like third out of 6. Let's see, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of 5, we were third,
Okay.
lower.
Well, the reason I say that, because the easiest solution to the problem is a percentage of the county council, as Commissioner Hathaway says, maybe jack it up to 75% and then attach a CPI or whatever the city employees get.
Yeah, that would be the easiest way, but we just all got to feel comfortable. And
Because again, if they're at 50% now, and I'll just take the mayor. Mayor's at 28,081, okay, according to this chart.
Yeah.
All right, so that's 50% of Broward, which means that's what 56 grand a year.
Yeah.
So if you suggest 75% of 56, I don't have my thing, figure it out, then we're probably in the 39 range, somewhere around there. Because again, I don't think we can get to, you can't get to putting the mayor or the county chair at the real full-time job, because it's, quote, not a full-time job.
I agree.
So you kind of have to take, somebody up there is making some decision. And I'm not sure how that's done. I don't know if they vote their own. Does anybody know that?
I think Volusia County votes their own rate.
Is there any way for the mayor to be compensated for travel? When they have to travel, for example, to South Florida or somewhere?
They get compensated for mileage.
Okay, for
Right.
mileage.
I mean, not just the mayor, but all the commissioners, if they travel outside.
And there's
But Khalid, they also get their hotel room paid or their conference registration
Right.
paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
they do, they do,
Yeah.
they do. I mean, that's part of the,
Okay.
that's part of the job.
Just trying to understand.
So I think because of the problems that I'm hearing about getting the data and the accurate data and where we're at, and because we're really talking about Volusia County in kind of a cylinder here, I would maybe think about just doing something like 75% of the county council chair for the mayor and 75% for the council members for the commission members. And I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second for discussion.
Can I just,
I think we need more discussion.
you originally stated your motion including the CPI. Do you want that in there as well?
Okay, I'll amend the motion to the mayor and the commissioners to be 75% of the county chair and county council members to include an annual CPI after that point.
And second for discussion.
Okay, so for discussion, two questions.
Yeah.
Then if we're going to do this true-up approach, how does that get done? So that's not by ordinance. Who decrees the true-up as a, what was the word that was used?
Well, I think we're making recommendations for the commissioners and the mayor to vote on. So if we say we feel it should be a true up and a CPI, then they can say yes or no.
So the
like
commissioners will
everything
make
else.
that own decision.
Well, they get to
for
make that
themselves.
decision because that's how this charter is set up.
Right, and they'll make that decision on the dais in a public
Yes.
situation.
And I think
All right.
that's appropriate.
But
So it wouldn't go to vote, it would just be their decision with public, reading of a change and public comments, and
And the public would vote.
does it still go to the voters? So
Yeah,
we'll
it's-
still,
yeah.
it would still be by ordinance then?
Well, it would be in the charter.
It'd be
Be in
Okay,
the
be in the
charter.
charter.
Yeah, be in the
So
charter.
go to a vote.
So the
Instead of it-
citizens are going to vote for that.
Okay.
Instead of it being an ordinance, it'd
Okay.
be in the charter. That would be no question about it. Every year, that's what it would be. And if the county council gives themselves
Yeah,
a huge raise.
well, the CPI would be in the charter, but that true-up would be voted by the, by the
We
elected?
went a different direction. I
That's
think
my
we're going a
question.
different direction. I think
Okay.
instead of doing like a one-time bump, we're saying let's increase it from 50 to 75 and make it in the charter so that they don't have to.
Oh, so that would be, so we would recommend that that gets put in the charter, but again, the electorate still has to vote on
Yes.
that item in the charter. I got you, okay.
replace that section.
Yep. So second question then is we're talking about the city, compensation and the Volusia County compensation. Is that just salary or is it total compensation? Because you listed off a number of benefits that our commissioners get. Things like life insurance and health insurance and so forth. do the other cities get that, as we look at this, do they get that same? Because that's what you want to look at, not just the base salary, but the total
Most
compensation.
of the cities that I'm aware of, that they do that, the same thing, the same package. Probably different in terms of the coverage.
Right,
and
so
forth.
if we're going to ask our city clerk to talk to local cities, we can get the total compensation as well. It shouldn't just be salary, it should be total.
Correct. But currently, you have a motion to actually make a decision on this. So
Okay.
if your direction is to amend Section 2.11 to reflect that it's no longer going to be voted on annually by a ordinance, and that it's going to reflect the Volusia County at 75% to include a CPI increase annually, then that will be your motion. We would not bring you back further data at that point in time.
Are we,
We would bring you back probably proposed language change.
Yeah,
are we amending an ordinance, or are we amending the charter?
We'd be amending the charter.
You're
Yeah.
amending the charter.
So if there's a charter there, do they have to do an ordinance?
No,
No.
the ordinance will go away.
Yeah, okay.
Just for clarification, the city commission shall determine the annual salary for the mayor and commission by ordinance. You all are recommending to do away with that verbiage, and we will come back with proposed verbiage based on how you vote. Right now, it appears that you are voting so that that it will reflect Volusia County raises. So if Volusia County chair raises their salary, then this will automatically raise to 75% of whatever they voted on.
Correct.
So you don't have to keep revisiting.
Correct. And then the annual CPI on top of that.
No, excuse me, so are we saying every time Volusia County changes their salary, then we would change it to 75%? We're not just going to put it at 75% at this time and then annually from there on out increase it with the CPI?
Not the way the motion was stated.
Now,
Or I understood it.
What I think the motion I made, what I was thinking when I did the motion, excuse me, what I was thinking when I did the motion was that we would do a true up right now to 75%. And then whatever that amount was when it was accomplished at the voting, from that point forward, it would be the CPI automatic increase. The other option to it would be to just say 75% of Volusia County, and whenever Volusia County raises theirs, it would raise this one. So there's two options there, but I think my motion was a true up, and then from then a CPI. But that may get more confusing.
I think for simplicity's sake, it would just make, to me, it would make more sense for it to always be 75% of the county chair, always 75% of the county council. In addition, they get the CPI. And if the county council decides to give themselves a raise, that would automatically happen by the charter. That would be what I was proposing when I first discussed it.
Okay, but that doesn't match Mr. Palmer's
I agree.
motion.
No,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I don't,
So
And
I
how
think
do we
you
get
all need to,
75%?
to,
That's just a number out
Take-
of the air.
yeah. I think you need to take action on Mr. Palmer's motion
yeah.
and yay or nay it, and then go where you're going,
Unless,
Spencer.
Mr. Palmer, do you want to modify your motion?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'll amend my motion to read, change the charter to reflect 75% of the county chair and county council members' salary for the city mayor and city commissioners, period.
So wait, so 75% for the mayor of the county chair and 75% for the commissioners of the commissioners?
Yes.
The council, because they get paid differently?
Yes, yes, yes,
Just straight 75 across the board?
yes.
I think that's
certainly cleaner,
much cleaner.
and I would second that.
And their raises probably do include a CPI. I mean, they probably raise themselves and say, oh, we want to have like 5% and 3 of that's the CPI. I mean, so if you do the CPI and the 75, I think you're kind of double dipping.
That's probably
Yeah, I think it gets done through the budget process, and that budget process probably takes into consideration the CPI or whatever they're going to give the county employees.
But his proposal was a one-time true-up to 75% because it's at 50% today.
Correct.
And then the CPI changes every year.
Not this, he amended it.
Yeah, that was the first one. Now it's
Yeah.
brought back just to make it 75 in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So our current charter, does our current charter somewhere specify salaries at 50% of?
Ordinance, the ordinance says that.
The ordinance says that. Gotcha.
And they have to vote on it every year, which
Yeah. Putting it in the charter just cleans it up and prevents them having to readdress it every single time.
Do we know if the county council routinely does a salary adjustment annually?
They do for county employees, I know that, but I don't know if it affects the charter people.
The concern I would have, not just setting it at a percentage of theirs, if we do the CPI annually and they don't change it, in about 3 or 4 years, they're going to exceed what the county council's making.
No, I amended it, I took the CPI out.
Okay.
It's just the flat, whatever theirs is, it's 75%.
I understand, thank you.
And I know that for the other charter, like the county attorney, I've seen where they give him a raise, and they give the county, is the administrator, is that what he's called? Manager, county manager gets a raise. So they're doing adjustments, so somehow, I'm sure they get theirs adjusted also.
So today, it's set by ordinance at 50% of the county. We're proposing here that resetting that to 75% of the county, right, of the county, but to have it in the actual charter.
Yes.
So in effect, giving the total commission a 50% raise, right? You're going from 50 to 75, which is a 50% raise. And then basically presenting that to the electorate to say, we would like the electorate to approve giving all of our commission members a 50% raise. Okay?
Yeah, and they get the choice, and they might
Yeah,
tell
they
us
get the
to go
choice.
pound sand, you guys are nuts.
They're going to say, you got to be kidding me, right? So we, again, we just get back to, what do we gain from that? Is that going to attract a better mayor? Is that going to attract better commissioners? Is that going to make our commissioners, more willing to spend all the hours that they spend out here today? I don't think we're going to gain much from that, but we're going to get the public looking at the commission and saying, who do you think you are?
Well,
So
unfortunately,
my
just because it
concern.
wasn't handled properly in the past.
Hmm?
So that's the answer to why such a big increase, because it wasn't done properly in the past.
Okay?
I think it also goes to how you present it, Dan. I see what you're saying.
Anytime how you present it.
Yeah, I mean, if you present it, why you're doing it, and what you think the benefits were, then the voters can make a decision what they want, if they don't buy the argument. But at least we put it out on the table.
So now, and the question I've heard is, where does 75% come from? Again, it's an arbitrary number. So if it's 50 now, we're just looking at 75 because it's halfway to 100, or we know that the work's the same, or, I'm just curious where 75 comes from. It's just picking a number.
Where did 50 come from?
Yeah, 50 was arbitrary, too.
Right.
Yeah,
it
50 was arbitrary, but just a very quick calculation, the mayor would still be in the 30s range.
Sure.
Which is applicable to size of population.
Yeah, it's
So
going to cost the city.
It's not overstated. I mean,
It'll cost the city about $65,000 with the increases, right?
On an annual
10.5 for 4 people and 15 for the mayor.
Yeah.
Right.
Would it be appropriate to say that this would bring those salaries to be commensurate with other cities of our size?
Getting closer.
Around the country?
It's getting closer.
So could that be part of the verbiage in the, that would be something that I would, if I saw that, I might vote for it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we could, because obviously the city council members and the mayor are going to say, okay, that's appropriate. Yes, we should, since it's been brought to our attention, yes, we'll vote on it, but it still goes to, it's going to be special
It's
elections.
still going to go to the
It's
electorate in a special election, right?
People are going
for
to say
sure.
yes or no.
Yeah.
Let's just give it an option.
So I'd love to see real data, so the data that we're going to get from the city clerk that goes through the salary of the cities that are around us, not the four-year data, to your point, and also includes total compensation, so then we can really benchmark across the, the local cities and make a decision, because they are underpaid. We should do something for sure, and it's not going to change how anything happens. It just kind of puts you, at a better level footing against the other cities.
Well, and the other piece, though, is, Volusia, city to city, is not an apples-to-apples comparison. So when Edgewater's data comes in, I'm not really interested in what Edgewater's data is. Oak Hill, same way. I don't really care what Oak Hills are. The county is something that it makes sense. We can correlate to it, exactly right. The city of Daytona Beach, just based on a news article that pulled up, the mayor makes 50 and the commissioners make 41, and that was a year ago. Daytona's a bigger city, but Daytona also, in comparison, I'd much rather live here. So when we're trying to attract better quality people, and we want to reflect that this city is something special, it's the gem of Volusia County, and I wholeheartedly believe that, it's the gem of Central and most of Florida, then I think our salary for our elected officials should reflect that.
Well, I think another thing that you do, by doing it this way, you take it out of the annual voting. So you're not putting the commissioners in a position of having to vote for their pay raise.
Right.
Oh, I agree with that completely.
I mean, that's a benefit to me.
Yeah.
And most of the charters that I read, even where they voted their own pay raise, it did not take effect until the next seated commission or council. So it didn't apply to the ones who were sitting there. Could if they got reelected, but it didn't apply to the next one.
So a motion's out there.
Right, I would also recommend, though, that instead of having us look for the salaries in all 16 jurisdictions, like you just said, you're not really interested in what Edgewater or Oak Hill has to say, you know, that's fine. Maybe we should look at maybe the 8 top populations in the county, the cities that have, you know, just the top 8. I mean, there are a lot of small cities, Orange City, you know, some of those aren't very big. Maybe that's not of interest to the group here. We want to look at cities that are more the size and function to New Smyrna. Just a question, cuts down on how much time staff has to spend on, you know, getting this information.
If we had data from other cities from around the state, why not even use that to determine what the salary should be based on population?
You'd have to tell us who you want to go to, 418 or 22 cities.
Yeah,
well,
that's
okay,
why we
that's true.
chose the East
Sorry.
Coast, just to
Right.
keep trying to look at apples to apples, oranges to
Yeah.
oranges.
Gotcha.
When you do that statistic, can you break it down to what the salary would be per person within that jurisdiction? Know how many the population versus what the salary is, and give us the per person cost as to what they're being paid per person they're representing?
That's a good point, but let me throw this out to a con on that. Should you be basing it on per person or basing it on the fiscal level of responsibility of the citizens? Because you can have a smaller population that spends more money on more issues, which puts more responsibility on the commissioners and the mayor than you might find in the reverse. So just putting it on, it's a good point. It's one of the data points you could use, but I would also look at what their annual budgets are and the complexity of their cities.
I think you bring up a very good point, Mr. Wilson. You know, if you live and work in the town of Palm Beach, they have a whole different set of standards on what they think the per population pay should be versus what you have like in somewhere like New Smyrna Beach, you know? So
The mayor and the commissioners in this city are being faced with a whole bunch of issues right now. I mean, they're really working their butts off. So they certainly should be compensated more for that, whether it's the money means anything or not.
Right, I'm not disagreeing. So I think we go back to, do you want us to get all 16 cities in the county or just look at like the top 8, the top in size?
Just for a point of clarification, you do have a motion
Yeah,
that
right.
is on the table about raising it to 75%. I think you need to vote on that, because if you do decide to raise it 75%, I don't know that you want the data at that point in time. You'd have to give the facilitator direction on that. But the discussion probably should go back to that 75% aspect and whether it is appropriate at this time to make that vote.
The attorney is correct. You need to vote.
Or continue the discussion on the 75%. I feel like we kind of...
Yeah, we can have the vote now if you wanted to get that motion off, but I think a lot of us want some more data, you know, with cities that we can relate to before you make a decision on what that salary should be.
So
For
you're
purposes,
pulling 75% out of the air. We need something that we can relate to say, this is appropriate increase.
Okay, that's fine. If it's time for a vote, then we can go ahead and vote,
for-
knowing that, or
for-
unless you want to continue discussion.
for sake of moving ahead, I'll call the vote.
I think we should probably just have a final vote on it.
Can we repeat the motion real quick?
Call the vote, oh.
Can you repeat the motion?
I'll try.
Okay, call the vote.
To adjust the salary for the mayor to 75% of the Volusia County chair and adjust the salary for the commissioners to 75% of the county council members. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Member Billings,
Yes.
Member Fuselier,
Yes.
Member Hathaway,
Yes.
Member Eisen,
Yes.
Member Palmer,
Yes.
Member Poole,
Yes.
Member Rashidat,
Yes.
Member Riker,
Yes.
Member Rokier,
No, because I'd like more data.
Member Smith,
No.
Member Wilson.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the motion passed. So now we go back to where the attorney made us turn around and get ourselves back straight again. Obviously, Mr. Roker would like more information and data, so do we want us to bring back additional material or information on the salaries out there at the other a set number of jurisdictions within Volusia County? Or is that no longer felt to be needed?
I think the committee has spoken. I don't need to see it.
Okay.
Even if you did bring it back, the only way it could be changed is to have one of the yes votes change.
Correct.
So if any of the yes votes want more information, that's the only way you can change that vote.
I think it's if available, you bring it back at the next meeting and just have us look at it, if it's not too much trouble.
Point of direction, you just want Volusia County?
I would say probably the 8 cities in Volusia County.
And I would include in that,
The
not,
eight largest cities in Volusia County?
Yes, ma'am.
and I would also include their last fiscal budget, annual budget. So their population and budget.
Yeah. That'll make us all better, sleep better at night then.
We may have to raise it.
Yeah, we may have to raise it.
So the 8 largest cities in Volusia County and their last year's budget or current year budget?
Yeah, just the total's fine. We don't need the actual budget itself.
And the population or not?
I see population and
She
budget.
didn't repeat that.
Yeah, population and budget.
All right, thank you. All right, we have 10 minutes left, so we stay on schedule.
Madam Facilitator, we spoke regarding our timelines, and I said that we should, you as the facilitator should share, because we asked you in our first meeting what we need to back into a date to figure out, because we've already approved a special election, when we need to be done, and what's the stop-in date. So that needs to be clarified for everybody.
Sure, that was provided all in a memo from me. So I believe everything needs to go to, so the commission, correct me Sharon if I get it wrong, but the commission is not meeting in June. So you would need to take your items forward to the commission for the first reading in July, second reading at the second meeting in July. If you wanted these items to go forward, you need, again, we're backing into this, so I'm just using a preliminary date, okay? And that was in an email, a memorandum to you all. So I'm using the date of November the 4th, just because that's a normal election day. So you need 90 days, you need to have it given to the supervisor of election 90 days before the date you want to have the vote. So I forget what the exact date was, I can't find that.
November the 4th, I think.
Yeah, I think it was September 4th. So September 4th, everything would have to be turned into the supervisor of elections. Now, you are not by any means locked into that November 4th date. If you want to do it November the 12th, or you want to do it in December, you can pick whatever date. But you asked for, and that's what my memo reflects, you asked for what's the earliest date you could take it to the voters. And it would be November the 4th, backing into it, assuming that the elected body gets through everything and gets the first and second readings all done in a timely manner, you would be able to hit that November 4th date. They take longer to review something, everything pushes forward.
Did you say 90 days before November 4th to get it to the supervisor?
Yes.
Okay, so 90 days, October, September, it would be August sometime.
Yeah.
Right? And the commission's meeting
They meet in July.
July 8th and
22nd.
July 22nd. So in order to get it there in that time, but then the commission would have to get it before the 8th meeting to have the first and then the second reading on the 2nd to get it to the supervisor by the first week in August, right? I do that right?
Yes.
Right.
So that means that you probably need to get it to the commission sometime in June.
But they don't meet in June.
I understand that, but I mean, for our cements to, so the packet's there when they walk in the
Oh,
door.
well, yes, I mean, obviously it has to go to the city clerk, you know, the week before, everything would have to be done. So
Right.
everything that staff is going to have to do would have to be completed while the commission was
Yes.
not in session.
So I would suggest that maybe that is either the middle of June or the first week in June. If you're gonna have staff do something with it, so they get in the packet for the July 8th meeting. Because July 8th is the meeting, and then the next one's the, whatever I said, 20, whatever it is. Those are the two meetings that you need to get it voted on in order to get it to the supervisor of election, correct?
Yes.
So I would suggest that we give us a cutoff date to have our work done. It's got to be done by the middle of June.
Well, our second June meeting is June 17th. July 1, July 15, August 5, and August 19th were the remaining scheduled meetings if we need them. If we were going to try to double time that and do that, I would recommend we try to meet longer than 2 hours. Maybe go to 9 o'clock if we're going to cut 2 or 3 meetings at the end, as a thought.
And that, or maybe go a little bit later in November.
No, that could be 2.
Yeah, maybe,
Yeah, you
maybe
could
do
go-
a combination of an
go
extra
later in
hour
November if
and
needed to.
maybe later in November, we can still get that done.
We did kind of pick an arbitrary date. There are municipal elections on November 4th, that not ours, but Ponce Inlet, I think, and Lake Helen, some of the little
Yeah,
ones are,
there's
they're
a
having a
handful
couple.
of them,
yeah.
yes, So it was just an arbitrary date. Yes, you're correct. You can move it to any date you want in November or December if you, I mean, you know.
So
you
so
have
that timeline, though, would require the first reading on July 8th.
Correct.
So when would this committee ever make a presentation to the commission? Because I thought that would be kind of what we would do. We would have a set of recommendations that we would present to the commission.
On July 8th.
No, because that's going to be a reading of a proposed change on July 8th.
Yeah, but that's first reading.
Yeah, but they would.
They still present it
Yeah,
then.
you're still going to present it. And you present it in advance and present it to the staff, and the staff would
Or
work
the
it through.
meeting in July, the last meeting in July for the commission. Because the commission meets in July.
Yeah, July 8th.
You have July 8th and
And then
22nd.
22nd.
So you could either one.
So that leaves us, we could certainly don't have to, we're not tied to the 4th of November. Okay, December's a bad month if you're trying to get people to come out, and probably January. So if you don't make November, you're probably February. You got to do a report that's got to get put together and submitted to the commission, and then a presentation of that report, which could be the first reading, if you wanted. I'm trying to remember when the parking task force did theirs. Do you remember, Shay, when they did the presentation? Was it at the first reading? I can't remember.
I can't remember either, but it can be, because the first reading, you're typically just reading it, they're taking no
Exactly.
action, so, and
Right.
they are, in reality, the ordinance is what you have voted on, which is what you're going to be presenting to the commission, is
Yes.
reflecting your decisions as a group within the ordinance, so that is kind of the purpose of that. You can do it on the first meeting. Could it be done before and then first reading and then second reading? Absolutely. But, you know, it depends on your time crunch. You are coming up, if you're trying to make that November 4th,
It's tight.
it's tight.
But if we're coming through with recommendations to change, you know, the city charter, shouldn't we be presenting those changes and the commission debating those changes? Because they might not agree. So why would we present something on July 8th and have a reading on the same day of changes that we recommended that they haven't reviewed?
And then again, you don't have to have it during city commission by the presentation. I mean, you could have a workshop with the commission prior to that.
Yeah, but wouldn't you want to have the public available for that? I
That's-
mean,
it's a
okay,
workshop.
so the commission's not going to meet in June, but we're going to ask them to have a special meeting with
Not
us
in June. I said you could have a meeting in July. It doesn't have to be a city commission meeting.
Okay,
could be a workshop
Sure.
where the public attends, commission discuss it, and public participation is available.
Great.
And then you go on August, have the first reading, and then August 22nd, you'll have the second.
Perfect. And those readings would be readings of what the ballot referendum will look like?
That would be what the ordinance, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
The charter amendment.
Correct. It would probably show the language of how the charter was changed.
And I just want to make sure that we're very transparent, that we're calling for a $48,000 special election so that we can change the mayor's terms, change the city clerk's roles, change the salary by 50%, and all those things that we're asking the public to approve. So I think we really need to be very transparent and do that.
Yeah.
So, okay, good.
Should we make a recommendation maybe to start doing a 3-hour meeting so we have more time for discussion? I'd be willing to sit an extra
I
hour.
wouldn't, with everything else said. I wouldn't be interested in that.
Well, maybe we should do a vote.
To cut off the last 2 meetings, to extend the rest of the meetings by an hour, I would be okay with that. If we could save 2 nights totally by tacking on an hour to the next, I would be all for that.
Well, I'm going to be selfish. My son's off in college. He's home for 4 weeks, and I'm not going to sit here for 3 hours when he's only home for 4 weeks. My apologies.
I did 2 10-acre wetland delineations today. And I'm really tired. I don't think I would want to sit here for 3 hours either, honestly.
And I just come back to how this looks to the public. You know, from the first day, we were starting to move towards making decisions, trying to have this done by, you know, a special election this year so it can be effective on the 2026 general elections. I think we need to be careful about what this looks like and not rush something through and give it the adequate time that it needs.
The reason we're doing it is because
My
the commission
opinion.
put us in this committee to do it this year. If they wanted it for the 2028 election, they would have done it next year. The whole point of doing it in 2025 is so that we can have it effective for the 2026 election. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
Well, then why would you serve on the committee then, if you don't believe in what we're doing here? You've accused all of us of being corrupt every time we're up here.
I haven't accused...
I'm getting a little bit over that.
Hey, I
frankly.
haven't accused anyone of being corrupt.
You said we all have an agenda, and we've all made this decision behind closed doors. You've said it every meeting, frankly. Cite your sources, sir.
The public has said that, all right, in public
You
comments.
say it.
Okay, I'm not going to get into a fight with people here on the board. You can go ahead and proceed how you'd like to.
I would like that very
Proceed.
much.
Very good.
We're almost out of time. I'd like to make comments. I've spoken out a lot tonight. I think we can still accomplish it if we have efficient 2-hour meetings, follow Robert's rules, you get to be heard twice, and you call the vote. And we can be efficient in 2 hours. I'm guilty for getting us off track for half an hour earlier in this meeting, but if we follow the proper rules of governance, we can be efficient and accomplish. I mean, when we got on task, we accomplished 3 things tonight rather quickly.
And we don't have that much more to do. We've really only got like that one other issue, and then we want to talk about sustainability. So I think we'll be good.
And I think sustainability is a pretty big issue, right? We talked about, Spencer, you commented that we're the gem of Volusia County. I'd sure love to see us keep New Smyrna Beach as the gem of Volusia County. I've heard a number of people on this day say that the city's been declining, that there have been areas of, not the city, there have been areas of the city that have been degrading. We've heard some public comments that there's areas of the city that aren't like they used to be. So I'd just like to make sure that we give adequate time to that sustainability portion of it, because we've got to find a way to preserve the gem of Volusia County.
So, Sharon,
we
how
haven't
many more
talked about
meetings
that
do we
yet.
have left?
Pardon me?
How many more meetings do we have left now? Susan, I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't have my list in front of me.
Okay.
I'm
You go all the
thinking-
way till August.
We go till August, so we've got.
I think you have
Six.
6
All
probably.
right, so in the 10 or 12
There
hours
we
that we
go.
have left, I think
Right
we should
there.
be able to handle that.
There's the meetings right here on the screen.
Thank you for that.
So
6.
7.
I think you all are coming up on the close of the meeting. So just, the point of that previous discussion was so that you could get on that November 4th ballot. Apparently, it looks like maybe that's not the deadline that we're going to back into. We'll be having our next meeting, today is what, the 6th, May 20th?
May 20th.
The point of this is, again, to make recommendations to the commission as to what amendments you see within the charter. That is the reason that they put this committee together, was to make those recommendations, and anything could be changed within that charter.
Sure.
That was the purpose of this committee, and that's the purpose why you're on here, is to make those valid recommendations to move forward. One thing I would just like to remind you as a housekeeping matter is, You may be receiving emails regarding the charter and what amendments need to be being made or what their public positions are. Please remember to forward them to our city clerk so we are archiving and complying with public records. So I just want to make sure that we are doing that. This is just a friendly midway point reminder to make sure that we comply with public record. Any email you are getting or text message or whatever's coming through from the public, make sure we forward that on to the city clerk. Otherwise, I'm not sure if there's more point of business. I'll turn it back over to the facilitator.
But there was an information request made, so where are we with that?
Elaborate.
There was some information that was shared with the city clerk and with our facilitator and a public record.
Public record. I think we're
Yes.
still looking into it.
So-
I'm not sure if you've responded to it, but I know of the public record that you're requesting. I believe it's still being tracked down.
Okay, so maybe by 2 more weeks, we might have some information?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I think we've had a very productive meeting this time. Please keep in mind, if you have any questions, let myself or through the city clerk, send her an email, she'll get it to me, and hopefully we continue to move forward. The next couple of items coming up are related to some of the items we took action on tonight, so those should go pretty quickly. We should get into that sustainability section at the next meeting. We continue to move forward where we'll be on task. So, and again, one more question. Does anybody have anything else? I ask this at the end of every meeting. That's why the only thing left is sustainability, but are there any other items within the charter that anybody on the Charter Review Committee wants to bring up?
You have one other item that we didn't cover, I don't think we did, about the winning the primary election.
Right, we didn't get to that, but we'll get,
Right.
that'll come back up.
Okay,
so.
I thought I heard you say we only have one other item.
Yeah,
Is this-
that one, yeah.
We got that
one's
one.
there.
Also, I think I talked to you about this, Susan, is I thought that there's a section in the charter that doesn't need to be there regarding annexations, that could be moved into the Code of Ordinances and just referred to in the charter that we refer to Florida statutes.
Send me that one again.
But the procedures should go into the Code of Ordinances.
Yeah, send me that one again if you would, please. I think it's somewhere in my notes. But okay, those are the two things we'll add to the agenda to be sure that they're on there. Those two items.
I'll probably send you a couple of minor things too. I'll send them
Okay.
by email.
Is it something we've already voted on, or are they new
No.
items? Okay,
No.
perfect. Yeah, if you could get those to us, preferably tomorrow or the next day.
Yep.
Because I'm going to be out of town, and I need to get with Sharon so we could get the agenda set up so she can send it out when I'm unavailable next week, so.
I'll do that. As a reminder, I will not be at the next meeting.
Nor will I.
I make a motion to adjourn at 8:05.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.